and Des will be back on your screens at the same time next Wednesday evening.
Janet Frame, award-winning writer and misdiagnosed schizophrenic. Channel 4 presents An Angel at My Table beginning Tuesday at 10.
When it comes to the acid test, new Andrew's antacid tablets help relieve heartburn, acid indigestion, and trapped wind.
Suck 'em and see.
Welcome to John Smith's Spot the Crime. Watch carefully and see if you can spot the serious crime. Is it A, B, C, or D? Well, did you spot it? Yes, of course you did. It was C. Short measure on a pint of John Smith's, and you can't get more serious than that. Well, we can't go out on such a dismal picture, so we'll put it right for you. There. That's better, isn't it?
After most meals and snacks, plaque pH can fall to levels where acid starts attacking teeth. These attacks can last for up to 2 hours, increasing the risk of tooth decay. That's when chewing can help. Because when you chew for 20 minutes after eating, the chewing action produces more of your mouth's natural defense, saliva, which helps neutralize acid within minutes. So chew Orbit or Wrigley's Extra as part of your dental routine, because chewing helps nature fight the acid attack.
Golden Wonder Pots.
This one! Oh!
Just make sure you take yours with you, eh?
All these dishes from half the powder.
I'm singing the rain.
Trust Finish Ultra. Ultra clean, ultra finish.
I'm happy again.
Finish Ultra.
Hi.
Laura,
You always did stay up late.
how long have you been back?
About a day and a half. I was just passing by.
At this time of night?
Are you alone
Yes. No, look, I'm expecting someone.
at this time of night?
It's a neighbour.
Well, do we have time for a coffee?
Golden roasted, richer, smoother, Nescafe Gold Blend.
If I didn't get you out of bed. This coffee tastes good. Hello.
Enterprise have cut thousands of holiday prices, with families saving over £250. Pocket the money, or go somewhere a bit special. In thousands of cases, a little one goes free. Enterprise. We'll make your money go further.
Now, news at 10.
Mr. Major says Labour's plans will mean whopping tax increases. IRA bombs rip through the commercial heart of Belfast. Georgia's president flees, his opponents take the burning parliament. ITN discovers Turkish tankers breaking the embargo against Iran. And American doctors are advised to stop silicone breast implants. Good evening. The Prime Minister weighed in behind his Chancellor and party chairman tonight, attacking Labour's taxation plans. Mr. Major said if there was a Labour government, there'd be a whopping tax increase for each and every taxpayer. He said Labour's tax plans were central to an election campaign. His Chancellor, Mr. Lamont, said under Labour government, tax bills would go through the roof to pay for all their spending plans. They'd cost at least £35,000 million, he said. Mr. Lamont's Labour shadow, Mr. John Smith, rejected that figure as absurd and ridiculous. Mr. Smith said that while income tax had gone down under the Conservatives, overall taxation had gone up. A poll tonight for The Independent and the BBC's Newsnight said 71% of electors would rather have higher public spending than income tax cuts. 25% would prefer tax cuts.
The Prime Minister tonight put himself at the head of a propaganda offensive aimed at what Conservatives see as Labour's weak spot in the next election, their taxation plans.
They mean a whopping tax increase, not just for the rich, certainly for them, but a tax increase for each and every taxpayer.
Earlier, the Chancellor and the party chairman paraded in front of a poster aiming to expose what they call Labour's tax bombshell, although they first produced these figures last autumn.
Labour are proposing a massive increase in spending, £35 billion. You can do the sums very simply, and we've worked out that that means the average taxpayer, once their plans are fully implemented, will be paying something like £1,000 a year more.
It's a campaign described by John Smith as false, ridiculous and absurd.
I believe that what they're engaged in is the big lie. Say it often enough, doesn't matter whether it's true or not, and hope that some people will believe it. But I can tell you quite clearly and quite authoritatively, it is not true.
Labour has proposed two fundamental tax reforms. At present, anyone earning more than about £28,000 a year who has basic allowances is liable to 40% tax for any earnings above that figure. Labour will introduce a 50% rate, but says only it will start substantially above £30,000. The dramatic change will involve national insurance contributions. At present, wage earners pay 9% of the first £20,000. The maximum payable is £1,600. Under Labour, there'll be no upper limit. A married man earning £25,000 a year on average allowances at present pays £5,250 income tax and £1,600 national insurance. Under Labour, there's no tax change, but an increase in the national insurance charges of about £400 a year. If he earns £40,000, income tax at present is nearly £11,000 and national insurance £1,600. If Labour's 50% rate came in at, say, £35,000, he would pay £100 more income tax and £3,400 national insurance.
I think perhaps the most important thing about the national insurance contribution change is it bites much lower in the income distribution than the income tax change is likely to. Anyone earning more than £20,280 at the moment would find themselves worse off after the national insurance contribution change. That could well be 3.5, almost 4 million people by the time that a Labour government could be elected.
I think if you look at a top head teacher in the state sector, they could well end up paying more than £2,000 extra in tax and national insurance contributions. And I don't think we should be targeting people like that.
Despite today's campaign, most Conservatives admit economic recovery is the key to the election.
Would it be fair, though, to say that without economic recovery, you don't actually deserve to win the next election?
No, I don't think that would be at all accurate. What one has to look at is the present circumstances, how we are faring in the midst of what is a very serious recession, both at home and abroad. And one sees, if one looks at all the great engines around the world, all the great economic engines, Japan, Germany, the United States, all of them are slowing down. They're behind us in the economic cycle. We will be coming out of the recession ahead of many others.
And a New Year prediction?
And in the middle of 1992, or perhaps earlier, who can tell, we will have a general election and we will discuss the policies of the two main parties.
Labour says only the very wealthy will be badly hit by their proposals and that the wealthy have done well under Conservatives. But it's also true that in the South East, many wage earners will be affected. About 1 in 3 men in full employment in the southeast of England earn enough to be affected by Labour's tax proposals. What the Conservatives are saying is that despite the suffering of the present recession, under Labour, it would be worse still. Peter Allen, News at 10, Oxford.
The IRA dealt another blow to the commercial heart of Belfast today, detonating a second huge car bomb in just 24 hours. No one was seriously hurt in the blast, but the physical and economic damage will run into the millions. The £500 device exploded in the city's main shopping area at lunchtime. Yesterday, an £800 bomb devastated another leading business sector of the city just half a mile away. The army admitted tonight that 500 extra troops drafted into the province in November to help quell the upsurge in terrorist violence have been withdrawn.
Well into the hours of darkness, the city of Belfast was still clearing up the mess of 2 huge bombs driven right into the heart of the city by the IRA. Each was preceded by less than half an hour's warning, but the only injuries were slight grazes to police officers who were completing evacuations. Workers arrived at their offices this morning to find them in ruins. Hundreds of windows shattered, wreckage strewn across Bedford Street. There'd been £600 of explosives here. Local politicians claim security has been slackened off since Christmas, and are demanding tougher measures.
Death in our streets, death in our homes, destruction in our towns and in our cities. And I think that a policy that has brought that after 22 years needs to be changed. And I think that they need to change that policy now.
Hours later, the IRA abandoned at least 300 pounds of explosives in the city's high street, just a stone's throw from shopping precincts where New Year sales are underway. Retailers fear that the succession of huge bombs will stifle their trade.
It kills trade. Kills trade in town completely. Now, we won't get anything for the next, 3 or 4 weeks. And if there's another bomb in town, then trade will go again completely.
I was born like this in 1971, and it took 3 years to get back into business. And as regards trade, it'll be finished for another 5 years.
The government described the bombings as the IRA's New Year message of mindless devastation.
Every building will be refurbished, every tile will be replaced, every window will be refitted. However long the bombs go on in Belfast, the people of Belfast has an insurance that the government will rebuild Belfast better than it has been before.
Tonight, as security chiefs face yet more calls for further action against the terrorists, their biggest fear is that if the IRA continue to drive such huge bombs right into the city centre, one may eventually explode without warning. Jonathan Munro, News at 10, Belfast.
President Zviad Gamsakhurdy of Georgia has fled the former Soviet Republic and left its parliament building in the hands of rebel opponents and in flames. The rebels say the president and about 80 supporters slipped out of Tbilisi under cover of darkness and crossed the border into neighbouring Azerbaijan. Other reports say he's fled to Armenia, but tonight there is no hard information about where he has gone. The rebels he left behind after a 2-week power struggle say they plan a new civilian coalition government before holding fresh elections, possibly in April.
It was at dusk yesterday evening that the final and decisive bombardment got underway. Mortar and artillery shells crashing into President Gamsakhurdy's bunker, smoke belching out from fires started all over the Parliament complex. Tracer fire lighting up the city for most of the night. By morning, victory had been won, an opposition soldier triumphantly carrying the Georgian flag into the heart of Gamsakhurdy's fortress. In the square outside, where once some of the heaviest fighting had raged, opposition troops were celebrating with champagne and with volleys of automatic gunfire, to the obvious irritation of some of the senior men trying to maintain discipline. For the beaten army, defeat brought only the prospect of interrogation and prison. They told their captors how they had been deserted by their leader at around 3 in the morning, as he had fled his stronghold with a group of his most trusted men. He had not told them where he was headed or what his future plans were. Back at the Parliament building, fires started in the overnight bombardment, raged out of control. This, the legacy of a fortnight of war in which men who believed their elected president had become a dictator took up arms and deposed him. The Tbilisi fire service struggled to prevent even more destruction of their historic capital. But all around them now lie the burnt-out ruins and pockmarked buildings of this once beautiful city. There are the first signs of a return to normality. Policemen were back on the streets for the first time in a fortnight, and some opposition volunteers are keen only on a quick return to their old way of life.
Now my war is end today because now I'll give my gun and my auto, and I'm going to go at home because I have a lot of work. I'm a teacher at school, and I like teacher boys and girls.
So your war is over?
Yes, my war is over.
There's a demand from ordinary Georgians that out of all this, democracy must return.
Now it must be democracy.
The opposition have won here, but the man they've overthrown was the democratically elected president. New elections are promised, but after decades of communism and now this, working democracy is going to be very hard to establish here. Tonight is Christmas Eve in the Georgian Orthodox Church. Churches are full throughout Tbilisi, with worshippers celebrating not just Christmas, but an end to a battle that has torn their lives apart. James Mates, News at 10, Tbilisi.
They were the first direct presidential elections in Soviet history. In May, 87% of the voters of Georgia sent the poet-turned-politician Zviad Gamsakhurdy to parliament as the independent republic's first president. He appeared to possess all the right credentials, an intellectual jailed by the communists whose opposition to Moscow endeared him to freedom-loving Georgians. 4 months later, the honeymoon was over. The crowds outside Parliament now called him a paranoid dictator. During the first 4 months, he arrested his political opponents, shut down liberal newspapers and closed Tbilisi University. Demonstrations against his government were banned, and he imposed a 6-year prison sentence for those who slandered the presidency. It was disaffected members of his own National Guard who provided the means by which the liberal opposition was able to remove him. Political analysts in Moscow believe the events in Georgia set a dangerous precedent for the other republics.
So if the same happens in any other republic, at least those who are unhappy with the present leadership, they would have, all the rights to say, well, that happened in Georgia, why don't we do that the same in Moscow or in Petersburg or in any other place?
Opponents of the new regime will be waiting to see if the events of the last few months will now bring Georgia closer to Russia and President Yeltsin's new Commonwealth. Peter Sharp, News at 10 in Moscow.
And James Mates, we hope, joins us live from Tbilisi. Hello, James. Can you hear me? What's the latest situation?
Well, the city is rife with rumour and speculation this evening about the fate of President Gamsakhodia. The opposition say that they have sent armed bands out to catch him if he is still within the borders of the republic. There are also reports that he slipped across into the neighbouring republic of Azerbaijan.
James, who is in control? Who is in control in Tbilisi tonight?
Well, it's the opposition military council, and when you say in Tbilisi, we mean in Tbilisi because there's no indication yet how far their writ runs. They do control the capital. What we don't know is whether they have the support or the infrastructure to run the rest of the country.
There's been one report that the former Soviet Foreign Minister Shevardnadze wants to go back to Georgia to try and help rebuild the democratic process. What do you think of that possibility?
Well, I asked him exactly that question when I interviewed him the other day. I said, do you have ambitions to run Georgia again? And he said, smiling, I'm a man without ambition. But he was well known as the most vociferous opponent of President Gamsakhodia. And now that he's gone, if he can find common ground with the current rulers here, that, I suppose, must be a possibility.
James Mates, thank you very much indeed. Alistair.
Sorry, we had a slight break-up in the sound during that two-way. A plane load of British beef sent to feed the starving in Russia has reached Murmansk after being rejected by health inspectors in Moscow. They were worried about the cattle disease BSE. A second plane waiting to fly out from Stansted in Essex has been emptied of beef. It's been put back in cold store. European community officials who've passed the meat as fit to eat are still talking to officials from Moscow. The Commander-in-Chief of the former Soviet Navy said the decision by the Ukraine to take over the Black Sea Fleet breaks the agreement by the new Commonwealth on conventional forces. Russia says the new Commonwealth will fall apart if the Ukraine doesn't back down. The Ukraine has already begun making former Red Army troops stationed there swear allegiance to the Republic.
The birth of a new European military power, that at least is what this ceremony will lead to if the Ukrainian government achieves what it wants. These were among the first Soviet troops to accept a change of master and swear allegiance to the Ukrainian Republic. Ukraine has instructed all Soviet forces based on its territory to declare a new allegiance. They number 1,300,000. But 40% of them are Russian and are being asked to choose between swearing allegiance to what's now a foreign country and being packed onto planes and sent back to Russia. The Ukrainian government's action has provoked an angry exchange with Moscow. Marshal Shaposhnikov, commander-in-chief of what's left of the Soviet military structure, appeared on Russian television to accuse the Ukrainians of creating a critical situation. And Boris Yeltsin's supporters say the Ukrainians are threatening to break up the Commonwealth.
What is necessary for every state, independent state, is a reasonable and rational behavior towards their neighbors. And then, frankly, I don't see this rational behavior by now. And it concerns me very much.
While the Ukrainians accuse the Russians of trying to dominate the Commonwealth.
I think that Russia must get rid of its older brother complex. It must understand that Ukraine can have its own army just as Russia does.
The only military issue they have managed to settle is the future of nuclear weapons. The Ukrainians have accepted that the thousands of nuclear warheads still buried in silos in 4 Commonwealth republics should come under central control. And they say they'll start dismantling their tactical nuclear weapons immediately. But they do want Soviet hardware as well as Soviet men, and above all they want the Black Sea Fleet, the third most powerful force in the Soviet Navy. Russia insists it's hers. The Ukrainians want their own flag flying in the port of Sevastopol.
All military forces which are located in Ukraine must to obey to Ukrainian people, to Ukrainian state. All military forces include also Black Sea Fleet.
No sign of Ukraine and Russia resolving their differences over the division of military spoils, and the tension between the two largest republics does threaten to undermine the development of the Commonwealth and the orderly dismantling of what used to be the Soviet military machine. Edward Sturton, News at 10, Kiev.
8 months after millions of pounds were raised to help Kurdish refugees in northern Iraq, the novelist Jeffrey Archer is visiting the region to find out how the money's been spent. Mr. Archer sees for himself where the money went. A report next. Plus, America's call for a halt to silicone breast implants. And Requiem for the LP by W.H. Smith. That's in a couple of minutes.
Every minute of every day, Eagle Star opens 8 insurance policies for people all around the world. Eagle Star covers your world.
Allied's big sale is now on with fantastic savings on carpets. Save £5 a square yard on this Cosset carpet. Allied's big sale, now on.
Every year, the world's favorite airline brings 24 million people together. You're watching a BMW equipped with computerized suspension. Unfortunately, the car you're watching it from isn't.
They sing about on the river.
If you dream of getting away from it all, to a life at a leisurely pace, you'll take to a Ho Seasons boating holiday like a duck to water. Phone 0483 462 462 for boating holidays in Britain or France.
ITN has evidence that Turkish lorry drivers are breaking the United Nations trade embargo against Iraq by importing petrol and diesel. The Turkish government told News at 10 that it knew nothing about the illegal trade. The novelist Mr. Geoffrey Archer has been touring the area, seeing how millions raised for the Kurds by his Simple Truth appeal is being spent.
If Geoffrey Archer was greeted as something of a saviour, there are still those here and at home who wonder whether he raised anything like the £57 million he said he did. That's why he's here, on a mission to explain and to assure himself and those who gave to his appeal the money has been spent on the right things, on the right people, in the right way. And that may take some convincing.
Well, the United Nations have assured me that when I go deeper into the country, I will see that all the shelters that have been spent, which have been spent on, where they've now taken care of some 700,000 people.
When ITN last visited the main refugee camps 2 months ago, conditions were said to be fair, with adequate supplies of basic food and medicines administered by the United Nations. It was these people's only means of survival once Saddam Hussein imposed his own blockade on supplies going to the Kurds. But that has now dramatically changed in this, the severest winter in over 20 years. Now the only way to supply them and the villages around them is by air. That is 3, and only 3, small American Army helicopters that can carry only small loads and are able to fly only in between the snow blizzards. The air crews are doing their best in what has suddenly become dangerous flying conditions. But considering that so many thousands of families down there beyond the mountains depend on them for their lives, it is extraordinary that a bigger relief operation hasn't been ordered.
They have been provided with food ration from 3 to 6 months.
So they can survive the snow?
Hopefully.
Hopefully.
Yes, inshallah.
The Kurds have now found a means to pay their own way by encouraging Turkey to break the United Nations economic blockade on Iraq, which shut off the main oil pipeline. The main highway crossing the border is now filled with an endless convoy of lorries with special tanks to carry fuel. This one line, stretched over 6 miles, that's over 8,000 lorries carrying about 1,000 gallons each. They buy in Iraq at 3p a gallon and sell in Turkey for around £1.50. The Kurds are taking their own cut, charging a tax on every lorry crossing their territory. It pays for food, medicines and schools. This is the new Iraqi oil line, and it's one road to survival for a people who believe they have been forgotten. Michael Nicholson, News at 10, Dohuk, Iraq.
Doctors in the United States have been advised to stop operations to put silicone implants in women's breasts. It follows cases in which women who have had operations have later suffered serious illness. The implants are used for women who have had cancer surgery or those who want their breasts enlarged. The U.S. Food and Drug Administration says the operation should be halted while more research is carried out. In Britain, where 100,000 women have had implants, the Department of Health said they were monitoring the situation. Any women worried about implants should contact their doctor.
Every month in America, 10,000 women receive breast implants made of silicone gel. For some, it has proved a disaster.
I wanted to look sexy.
Callie Corn's implants leaked. Her doctor says the disease she now suffers from, her skin has tightened over her bones, was caused by the silicone.
I don't sleep at night. I have pain all the time, with uncontrollable pain.
The Food and Drug Administration decided today the risks of further uncontrolled use are too great.
I am asking that physicians cease using silicone gel implants. As physicians, our first obligation is to do no harm.
Manufacturers say they have stopped distributing the implants, but today's decision, they claim, will frighten women.
Failure rate of breast implants has been surprisingly low. The total number of reported documented ruptures is less, significantly less, than 1% of the units sold.
Many celebrities, like actress Cher, have had breasts altered. Most implants are for cosmetic reasons alone. But thousands of women, like Kathleen Beagleman, used implants after cancer operations.
Yeah, I feel good about myself. My body's whole again, and I would do it over again in a minute.
Critics say today's temporary ban on implants may deter women from screening for breast cancer. Within hours of today's decision, dozens of women sued manufacturers for illnesses they claim are related to silicon leaking from implants. The ban will remain until further tests, to begin next month, can prove that the implants first used 30 years ago are safe. Bill Neely.
Bill Neely reporting from Washington. The European newspaper threatened with closure after the collapse of the Maxwell media empire has been sold. The new owners are David and Frederick Barclay, London-born twins who control a multi-million-pound empire in hotels and property. It means the paper, formerly owned by the late Robert Maxwell, will continue to be published.
Tonight, relief in the European newsroom. Weeks of uncertainty ended at 4 p.m. when staff were told a buyer had been found.
We were all really pleased. When we all gathered round the editor, he looked rather pale and we were rather worried, but it's great news.
We've been with it for over 3 years now, and we've always believed in it, and it's nice to know there's a buyer out there that believes in its future as well.
And the new owners of the paper, bought for an undisclosed sum, are London-born twins David and Frederick Barclay, multi-millionaires who do not seek publicity. They own hotels like this one in the West End of London and substantial shipping interests estimated to be worth £500 million. At the European, this man is their representative.
We had been interested in the European as a newspaper since we knew it was available, but it's only the last few days that we've taken it really seriously, and I'm happy that we completed the purchase at 2 o'clock today.
Although the fate of the paper has been settled, it could be weeks before the remaining staff know if they'll all have jobs. A new business plan is being worked out.
Soccer, Liverpool hit 4 past Crewe tonight to go through to the 4th round of the FA Cup. John Barnes celebrated his comeback with a hat-trick. From a Dean Saunders' corner, Mark Wright's header was knocked off the line. Saunders' shot across the goal was cleverly backed heel by Barnes. That was his first in the 26th minute. Liverpool now go through to meet Bristol Rovers.
And tonight's top story again. The Prime Minister has said Labour's spending plans would mean whopping tax increases. The Chancellor said as much as £1,000 a year for the average taxpayer. Labour's John Smith said it was the big lie, absurd and ridiculous, and Labour would not raise the basic rate.
Finally, the compact disc has turned the tables on the old LP. W.H. Smith have said they'll stop selling long-playing records when current stocks run out. They already sell far more CDs, but this is only one phase of a much larger revolution in high-fidelity sound.
In the heyday of the vinyl disc, Britons were buying 80 million record pressings worth £20 million every year. 78s were as obsolete as the cylinder. But now CDs and compact cassettes are consigning vinyl to the same dustbin of history. In W.H. Smith's shops, less than 3% of sales are now vinyl LPs. It's all happened in a decade. In 1983, CDs had less than 1% of the market. LPs had more than half, cassettes over a third. 3 years later, CD sales had risen to 6%, and LPs had been overtaken by cassettes as the market leader. And last year, LPs were outsold by CDs by a factor of 3 to 1, and by cassettes by 4 to 1.
The LP is clearly dead. CD is very popular, sweeping the board. Cassette is popular, but is beginning to wane. The feeling is that the time is right for a digital recording medium in the home.
The record industry is about to launch 2 such digital and therefore high-quality recording media to challenge ordinary cassettes. This is one.
It's called a digital compact cassette. It looks like an ordinary audio cassette, but it isn't. It comes out like this, and when you put it in the player, you'll hear the difference.
Initially, players will cost about £300, but they will play old-fashioned ordinary cassettes too. This is the other system, a mini CD that records at home. Next Christmas, they'll be battling it out, just like the CD and the LP before them. Lawrence McGinty, News at 10, Central London.
That's News at 10 tonight. From Alistair and from me, good night.
Good evening. It's been fairly sunny and remarkably mild over much of England and Wales today, but there's been rain in the north and west of Scotland, and during the next 24 hours or so, that rain's gradually going to start moving further south again. Still mild in the southeast tomorrow, much colder weather coming into Scotland. Then eventually on Wednesday and Thursday, the rain finally arrives in the southeast. But the colder weather means some night frosts, I think, for many parts of Britain during the next 3 or 4 days. That's in the future. Let's come back to tonight's weather in more detail. The rain gradually moving south over Scotland, Northern Ireland too. Eventually, some rain coming into northern England. Southern parts stay dry, colder than last night, as you can see. The coldest weather of all in the far north of Scotland, where there could be 1 or 2 icy patches. Plenty of rain to come again, I'm afraid, for much of Scotland tomorrow, but it's gradually slipping a little bit further southwards. The thicker cloud bringing some rain into the northern parts of England, and eventually some spots of rain coming into the western parts of Wales too. The south and east mostly dry tomorrow, though not quite as sunny as today. And it's sunnier again, I think, in the far north tomorrow. As you can see, the far north of Scotland brightening up, but 1 or 2 wintry showers to come. But for most of us, a rather cloudy picture with some patchy rain around. Temperatures tomorrow, it is still mild in the south, though fairly windy with it. Much colder weather, though, has arrived for the north, as you can see. It's down to around 6 tomorrow, so a much colder picture for the far north. The colder weather slowly spreading south. Here's a summary.
Tuesday, we're getting to the bricks and mortar of home owning in house style. A new series returns at 7:30.
Come back your hot water, love. Or, should I say lack of it? John Jericho, jack of all trades, Inc. Harry, my sister. I do.
At 8, The Bill. And there's trouble of a domestic kind for the police on the Sun Hill beat.
Now do you believe me?
I'm not in trouble. I'm not arresting you. In fact, I'm not even cross.
Popping the question at 8:30, In the Upper Hand.
Caroline Whitley, will you marry me?
I will.
Drama at 9, in Mistress of Suspense. The Cat Brought It In is the beginning of a sinister mystery.
Something pretty violent severed those fingers.
Are you going to report it to the police? What will you be in for then?
Human life. Human life.
Yes, but we're not the law.
Edward Fox stars in this Patricia Higsmith story for Tuesday night on Granada.
Now on Granada, the latest Northwest news.
Good evening. A man has tonight been charged with manslaughter and drugs offences after the death of a schoolgirl from an overdose. He'll appear before magistrates in Oldham tomorrow. 15-year-old Joanne Gunning from Chatterton died last Friday. The post-mortem showed she died from amphetamine poisoning. Another man appeared in court at the weekend charged with 2 offences of possessing amphetamine for injection. Lancashire police have appealed to the public to help track down an IRA cell believed to be based in the northwest. The appeal follows the discovery of a bomb in a wood near an army camp on the Fylde. It was similar to bombs used by the IRA. Paul Crone reports.
Wheaton Army Camp near Blackpool, home to the 600-strong 1st Battalion Queen's Lancashire Regiment, whose Colonel-in-Chief is the Queen. The regiment has been based here since 1990, but is due to leave Wheaton in April. Today there was little doubt that these troops were the intended victims of a terrorist bomb, found less than a mile from the barracks on Saturday at Deadman's Wood in Singleton. Fortunately, the device was discovered hidden in a green holdall by a party of 5 local men out game shooting.
We were just walking through the wood and one of the lads just found this holdall and he shouted through, he said, it looks a bit funny this, and there was like plastic bags and gloves and some folded up black dustbin liners and a piece taped up like in a square.
Lancashire Police have set up a special incident room to sift through statements taken from the general public in the hope of uncovering valuable information which could lead to the identification of the terrorists. Forensic experts are still examining the bomb and will continue to do so for at least the next 24 hours, but it's almost certain that Semtex explosive was used. A 6-pound device could easily reduce a large building to rubble, causing heavy casualties. Detectives investigating this latest terrorist incident said they're now firmly convinced an active IRA cell is operating from the northwest.
I would like to appeal to members of the public to come forward with information about any person who's either resident or a tenant or lodger in any accommodation in the northwest that they're unhappy about, so that we can look at them and it may well help to bring these persons to justice.
The Ministry of Defence is investigating how plans of an army barracks were delivered by mistake to a greengrocer in North Wales. Plans of the roof of the Household Cavalry Barracks in London should have gone to a builder in Pwllheli. Instead, they went to Emyr Owen's shop in Old Colwyn. The MOD says the material wasn't classified and they're not treating the incident as a security breach.
The plans were there for the roofing job, and they seemed to be very useful to anybody because there was all the ventilation and everything else was involved in it. They've blamed the post office, you see, but I mean, somebody stuck my address on that envelope and on the letter that came with it. So I mean, I can't see how the post office can be blamed.
More than 200 steelworkers at Shotton on Deeside are to lose their jobs. The cut was announced tonight after a meeting between British Steel and trade unions. British Steel blames the recession and increasingly competitive market conditions. The unions say management is panicking. The workers will be made redundant between now and December. 350 workers are on strike over redundancies at an engineering factory in Manchester. The strike follows more than 40 compulsory job losses at the GEC Altham plant in Openshaw. The unions want any redundancies to be voluntary and better financial terms for those who leave.
We know that orders have been turned down because we haven't got the relative numbers of staff in the place to actually tender for those orders. We know where the problems in the business lie. We've endeavoured to tell the management where those problems are, and at the end of the day they just won't listen to us.
Police are hunting a masked man who tried to abduct a 10-year-old boy on Merseyside. The man tried to snatch the boy only yards from his home in the Calderstones district of Liverpool early yesterday. He was wearing a white scarf around his face and a green anorak with the hood drawn tight. The boy's screams alerted his parents and his father chased the man away. Passive smoking may cause cot deaths and meningitis, according to a report from Manchester University. The report suggests that babies of mothers who smoke are twice as likely to suffer cot death. Trevor Green has the details.
I've got 2 children, and as I say, I smoked for as long as they've been alive at least.
I've never had any troubles with any of my kids, and I've smoked non-stop more or less.
As the Department of Health and the World Health Organization continue to target nursing mums, many still find it impossible to give up smoking. Now a survey based on more than 50 research projects provides further evidence of a direct link between passive smoking and high infant mortality.
I think from the general point of view of the range of illnesses, both serious and minor, that can be caused, or at least made worse in children, I think parents should be very concerned about this and really seriously think about being non-smokers.
Dr. Charlton's findings also show that many children suffering meningitis have been subjected to passive smoking. And according to latest figures, meningitis in parts of the region is still rising, while other parts of Britain are showing a downward trend. Cheshire's up from 44 to 59, Merseyside from 110 to 135, Lancashire from 76 to 78, although Greater Manchester actually fell last year. At Alder Hey Hospital in Liverpool, the regional centre for meningitis, specialists admit they are concerned about the present level of meningitis cases.
This would be another reason for people to abandon this habit. Certainly there are other conditions in childhood illness which have been linked with smoking.
You're a paediatrician. How do you find it when couples come to you who you can see, who you know are heavy smokers, they have young babies?
Quite a lot of them will say that they don't smoke in front of the children or in the same room as the children. So I think that message is getting through. But nonetheless, I think that if there is smoking in the house, then it pervades the house.
Rugby League, just one result tonight in Division 1. Hull Kingston Rovers beat Swinton by 18 points to 6. And that's it. More news tomorrow morning.
Now the Granada weather. After an almost spring-like day, it's back to cloud and rain again tomorrow, but most of the region will stay dry through the night, with temperatures no lower than 5 degrees centigrade. There'll be a fresh southwest wind. Cloud will thicken quickly during the morning, bringing outbreaks of mostly light rain and drizzle to the north and west. The southeast of the region may stay mostly dry through the morning. But the rain will become more widespread during the afternoon and evening, with some heavier bursts in places. Winds will stay strong. And now the outlook. The rain may still be around at first on Wednesday, but there'll be a change to brighter, colder weather during the day. Thursday, Friday and Saturday should all be mostly dry, but it will feel colder with some night frost in places.
Hello, tomorrow Coronation Street's explosive sailor Des Barnes takes a look at this year's boat show.
And after a man was shot dead by police last week, we'd like your opinions on the sale of replica firearms. Should they be banned?
And if you want the new year to be the time when you realise all that unfulfilled potential, untap it in the phone-in.
And Status Quo join us too, 10:40.
Well, the Fiat Uno, perfect for the independent woman. Thank you.
Book your summer holiday with ATMAs and go one better with thousands of holidays to choose from. Go one better in price with big savings from £30 to £200. Or if you take more than one holiday like me, go one better with Travel Plus, where a year's free insurance is only the beginning. Everything a travel agent should be.
Lucozade for the human race.
In 5 days, we'll change the way you wash your face forever.
What's wrong with soap and water, I said?
We asked Sheridan to use Ulay's Foaming Beauty Wash instead of soap for 5 days.
After rinsing, my skin felt smoother. Softer skin after just 5 days. Fantastic.
Ulay's Foaming Beauty Wash will change the way you wash your face forever.
I'll never let soap near my face again.
Get out of that kitchen and shake that Worcester sauce. Well, come on and shake it on every course. I said shake jacket and cheese. I said shake tomato soup. I said shake burger and beans. I said shake pork and rice. What you add a dash of magic, that'll be real nice.
Liam Perrins, the Worcester Sorcerer.
We're breaking down, darling.
Oh dear. How are we going to get home and how's Barney going to get home?
I don't know.
But we know a man who does.
If one of our female members breaks down alone, or with children, we'll go to her first.
Daddy says you're a very nice man. A very, very nice man.
Want to give your husband a call? Say you're all right.
Oh, yes, thanks.
BAA. We're all you need to know.
Mike Reed.
I'll tell you about the son that I lost and the little girl that I still miss. But also about a wonderful lady who helped me realise I'm still the luckiest man alive.
Only in the Sun.
Slim the Fatfield way. And you needn't give up your old favourites. Eat more, weigh less with the Sun.
Go to France for only £1 with the Sun and Sea-Link. And get this free 8-page guide to the French ports, the shopping, the restaurants. France for just £1 with the Sun.
Runny nose, sore throat, coughs, sneezes and the shivers. Help say good riddance to bad cold and flu symptoms with day nurse and night nurse from Beecham.
Word of warning. It's very easy to get lost in the back of a Fiat Tempo station wagon. Thank you.
Friday's comedy starts with Watching at 8.
Nice.
Daddy, who made them?
Our lady who does.
Sounds like a convent. As what?
My room in the residency.
So if you've got a lady who does, why are you bothering with a lady who doesn't?
At 8:30, a man who won't.
Do you ever rub me down like this?
You look pretty silly in a weatherproof wax finish.
An hour of your favourite comedy starting at 8, Friday on Granada.
And now on Granada, it's time for us to watch The Women of Wentworth.
Denise.